This is another DVD review for Sasquatch Odyssey, The Hunt for Bigfoot. 4 men and their strange quest for the big hairy legend. This is the documentary, came out in 1999, produced by Peter von Puttkammer. One of my previous reviews was for Bigfoot, A Beast on the Run. That was produced and directed by David Thayer, who's actually a Swiss citizen. So he's from Switzerland. He directed that one and produced that one. This is by Peter von Puttkammer, who later went on to produce a series called Monster Hunters, which was broadcast on the Learning Channel. But this one is about it's about John Green, Peter Byrne, Renee DeHinden, and Grover Krantz. Of course, Krantz and DeHinden are no longer with us, but Green and Byrne are still with us. And this profiles all 4 of those men and profiles their beginnings and how they got into the research, how they got involved, how they got interested. Of course, Green, he started out in 1958 when he saw... Actually, he started about a year earlier when Renee DeHinden came to his office at the Agassiz Gazette, which was the newspaper that John Green ran at the time, and told him about, or asked him about the Sasquatch legend, and John Green told him, don't waste your time, there's nothing there. And John Green at that time initially thought there was nothing to it, until he looked into it, went down to Northern California in 1958 and saw the Jerry Crew casts, and saw some of the initial footprints down there at Bluff Creek. Grover Krantz got started. He got interested in it about 1964. He kind of poo-pooed it and gave it about a 10% chance of being real until 1969 when he saw the Bossberg tracks, the Cripplefoot tracks. He shifted to 100% belief in that. Renee DeHinden got started in 1953. He moved to Canada from Switzerland. And he was working for a dairy farmer in, I believe it was the province of Alberta. And they were sitting listening to the radio one night, and they heard a news item about the BBC, the Daily Mail newspaper in England, was talking about a search for the abominable snowman. And Renee DeHinden turned to his boss and said, wouldn't it be something to go on a search like this? His boss told him, well, you don't have to go that far. They got those things over in British Columbia. And DeHinden described it as like somebody turning a switch. And that's how he got interested in the Sasquatch, and that was the mission that he was committed to until his death in 2001. Of course, Krantz was interested in Sasquatch until his death in 2002. And then Peter Byrne initially got interested in the abominable snowman, the Yeti, working for Tom Slick, the Texas oil millionaire, over in the Himalayas. And then he was called by Slick to come over to America to search for the Bigfoot in Northern California. And Byrne was elected to lead the expedition in Northern California, which that rubbed John Green, Renee DeHinden, and the late Bob Titmus the wrong way. So by about I guess the summer of 1960, just about all of them were gone. They'd gone off on their separate ways, and they were going to search for the Sasquatch on their own. And they weren't going to work with Peter Byrne because they considered Peter Byrne a fraud. And John Green still holds that opinion today of Peter Byrne, unfortunately. But that's his opinion. We also see the Patterson-Gimlin film analyzed by a special effects makeup artist named Toby Lindelof. He believes it's a hoax. He says it's a hoax. We see Renee DeHinden attempting to imitate the walk of Patty. We see some rare film footage of John Green at Bluff Creek and Tom Slick, and even Ivan Marks. We do see some rare film footage of them during that expedition, during the initial expeditions in the late 50s, early 60s in Northern California. We also see Robert Michael Pyle is also involved in this briefly, and he discusses some of his thoughts on Sasquatch. Henry Franzoni is also involved in this. Matter of fact, he signed this for me. He signed this for me last year at the Yakima Bigfoot Roundup. Let's see if I can get it out here. Not that side. Right there. Henry Franzoni. He's involved in this documentary. He talks about some of the historical aspects, the history of behind the initial expeditions from the late 50s. We also see Ray Crow. We see Ray Crow at the Ape Canyon area, in the Ape Canyon area. We also see a Western Bigfoot Society conference or meet right around 1998, where they kind of put the killer of Bigfoot on trial, a mock trial, of course. And Robert Michael Pyle speaks, and there are several others who speak at this event. There's a few that are there. There's a fellow who was interviewed, Reverend, can't remember what his name was, but he was from the Church of the Internal Combustion or something like that, and he gives his thoughts on Sasquatch, and he says that he doesn't want to see it. He said he doesn't really care one way or the other if it's solved or not. It's an interesting mystery. And there's a young man in this. I think his name is Matt. I can't remember his last name, but he's a young man. He's kind of he kind of comes under the tutelage of Peter Byrne, kind of passing the torch. Peter Byrne passing the torch to the next generation. And I hope that young man is still sticking with it. I really do. I hope he's still sticking with the interest in the Sasquatch. You know, because he is part of the next generation. He was about, I think they say he was about 15 years old, 16 years old, somewhere in there, at the time of that documentary, that when it was shot in 1998. And it's a really, really interesting documentary. There's a couple of eyewitness accounts. There's a lady who talks about seeing one crossing the road in front of her. There's a fellow who is, I believe, a former deputy sheriff, Jim Hastings, who actually saw one cross the road and then go into the underbrush. And we see Peter Byrne investigating that area. So yeah, Sasquatch Odyssey is a really great documentary on the 4 Horsemen of Sasquatchery. I would definitely give it a 4 3/4 out of 5 stars. It's really terrific. I do recommend it. It's on Amazon. It's also on eBay occasionally. There's also a website, www.sasquatchodyssey.com, where you can check it out. Check out some of the behind-the-scenes writings about the documentary. Really terrific. It's great. I recommend it.